But basically, those are things that break down our collagen and our elastin. So if we can slow down the breakdown of our collagen and elastin, we will age slower. And so that's kind of how it addresses our sun aging or our photo aging.
Hi, skin friend. I am so excited for this episode. We are going to be talking about a supplement that I have been hearing about for decade plus. And I've always wondered, is it just hype or is there actually some science and truth behind it? And what I'm talking about is this powerful fern extract known as Polypodium Leucotomos. And that's a mouthful. But if you haven't heard of it, it is a supplement that you can take that can help prevent sunburns, skin aging, and also skin cancers. And I have board-certified dermatologist, Dr. Noreen Galaria, joining me today. She is a general dermatologist who practices in Northern Virginia, and she also is the creator or co-creator, along with her husband, of a supplement company known as Inner Glow. And I'm so excited to pick her brain on what are these supplements, the Polypodium Leucotomos. Is it really this amazing supplement antioxidant? And is it a replacement for sunscreen? And I'm so excited to hear her thoughts on it and why she created this gummy for her patients. She also has some other cool supplements in the works and also that she offers, including a hair one. So we'll talk about that as well. And we're also going to talk about why you have to be careful when you're picking out your supplements, because what is on the bottle is not always what's in your pill. And as someone who creates supplements, she knows this firsthand and how important it is. So I am so excited for her to be on to share her knowledge and everything about Polypodium Leucotomos, because I have a lot to learn. I learned a lot from this episode and you will too. So let's get into it and learn about sunscreen's best friend, Polypodium Leucotomos. Dr. Galaria, I am so thrilled to have you here. I have so many questions and I love that you're here and what you're doing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
I'd love the audience to hear in your own words who you are, what you do, and a little bit more about day-to-day life in your practice.
Yeah, so I'm a board-certified dermatologist and I've been in practice about 20 years. And about 10 years ago, I became really interested in kind of learning how to marry, our medical training with more natural solutions and natural supplementation. And so 10 years ago, I began researching Inner Glow. And then a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, we launched that. So I'm also the founder of Inner Glow. I live outside of DC in Northern Virginia. I have 4 kids and a pretty busy practice. We have 3 offices. And I'm in practice with my husband, actually, who's a plastic surgeon.
Wow, you have a lot going on, like 4 kids, practicing doctor, and you are the, CEO or creator of this supplement company. Can you tell us what is Inner Glow?
When I was kind of trying to create Inner Glow, what was happening was there were all these patients who had a real interest in kind of natural but evidence-based solutions. And so when I was at the University of Utah, I was trying to research things that I could give my patients. And you might know that Utah actually has the highest rate of skin cancer in America.
Oh, wow. No, I did not know that. Is it because it's so high up, the altitude?
I think it's the altitude. I think because people are outside all the time. So in the summer, you have these beautiful summers. In the winter, you can ski. And so I had all these patients coming in with skin cancer, paired with the fact that when I started the research in 2010, that decade was slated to be the hottest decade on record. And we know, since then, 2020s are supposed to be even hotter. But patients were coming in and they were kind of frustrated. They were like, Dr. Galaria, I've got skin cancer, but I'm doing everything right. They would say, I promise, I'm wearing my SPF, I've got my clothes, I've got my hat, I'm reapplying, and I still keep coming in with more and more things for you to address or take off. And they were also worried about their kids because they were noticing that their kids at younger ages were freckling or burning. And so really Inner Glow was kind of born from a need to help the patients that I was seeing at that time in Utah. And that's really how my research started.
I totally get that frustration. I see a lot of skin cancer. I do Mohs surgery. And patients will say, well, what do I do to prevent this, right? Like, I feel awful when they come in and they've got 6 spots I've got to take care of, all these appointments, all this surgery, all the healing. And they'll say, I'm wearing hats, I'm wearing sunscreen. And right, as dermatologists, we know so much of this sun damage is cumulative and it starts early too. And so you can't really go back in time, but it would be great if we had something we could do for these people, or that they could do right in real time when they are doing all the other right things.
Right. And, so I was looking for something that we could give them, that they could give, like, for example, safely to their kids, because we know, like you said, that so much of the damage is cumulative before the age of 18, but also something that they could use like as an additional layer, right, of protection. Nobody should be using this instead of sunscreen, but as an additional layer of protection, it's fabulous. And not only is it great for that, but we know polypodium as an ingredient is also really good at repair. So they're getting benefits that are far beyond just kind of additional sun protection that day.
Absolutely. So taking this supplement, it doesn't mean you can go to tanning beds and get a tan and not wear sunscreen, right? And I even say with sun protection is more than just sunscreen. Like sunscreen is one component. So you could also say the supplement is another component. But let's give the listeners, like, what is this supplement?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to say it's a tool in our toolbox, right? It is not the be all and all. But polypodium is the main ingredient in the gummy, which is, kind of what we're talking about mostly today, the Soul Defense gummy. And polypodium is actually a fern. It's a natural plant that is native to Central and South America. And actually, the people who live in South America have known about it for years. And they used to brew it as a tea when they would be out in the sun in the summer to give themselves photoprotective properties.
So that's why they don't have the highest rates of skin cancer.
Probably. And, they've also got some melanin. But yeah, they really, I think they were really the first ones who get credit for figuring out that this was sun protective. I think at some point, someone just figured it out that, hey, this must have some properties. And, if you do a quick Google search, there's thousands of articles now on polypodium. The research is very impressive. And in our own research that we're finding on Inner Glow, what we realize is that there's really 3 things, right, that the sun does that we're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent sunburn in our patients. We're trying to prevent photoaging. So we know the sun's responsible for 80% of our aging. And we're trying to prevent cancer. And the amazing thing is that polypodium has properties that protect us from all 3 of those things. So when it comes to sunburn, it's got these antioxidant phenols in it, which will kind of work like an anti-inflammatory to decrease your redness in your sunburn. So not only will it help to prevent your sunburn, but actually, if you get sunburned and you take it, it will help to resolve your sunburn faster.
Oh, wow. Very cool. How can it help with aging and skin cancer?
So for aging, it blocks MMP, which is, it's a scientific term, matrix metalloproteinases. But basically, those are things that break down our collagen and our elastin. So if we can slow down the breakdown of our collagen and elastin, we will age slower. And so that's kind of how it addresses our sun aging or our photoaging. And then cancer, it actually suppresses, or it stops, I should say, UV-induced immunosuppression. So the sun actually suppresses our immune system and makes skin cancers more likely. Polypodium is able to block that.
Very powerful. We certainly know with especially like squamous cells, Merkel cells, right? Our body's immune system being strong and able to fight it off is so important. And yeah, I think people don't realize the sun can cause immunosuppression. So a lot of reasons to stay out of the sun and not burn. So this fern extract can do all these amazing things. I love that. And nowadays, I feel like so many people, they want natural remedies, right? Natural options. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is so much in medicine is actually from nature. It's just to be mass produced and everything where they pull out the exact chemical structure that we need. But I love when I hear these stories, like with aspirin too, right? How it really came to be and that people have been using this for centuries and knew this long before we did. So how can one take it? Like, do you take it every day? Do you just take it if you're going to be in the sun? What do you recommend?
So, We have kind of two products in our defense line, so sun defense line. One is called Age Defense, and that is a polypodium product that has, in addition, 13 other antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. Things that we've tested and seen through our research work, like pycnogenol, green tea, resveratrol, ginger, turmeric, things people have heard of, but they're all together in one in doses that we know are great, not just to protect you from the sun that day, but also to help to undo, past photoaging. And that is something that people often take every day, but it's a tablet. And so what happened was when we were talking to people, we realized people really want something they can take in a very easy to use format and that they can give to their kids. So that's really where the gummy came in. So I was, my kids did swim team, they ski, they run cross country, and I wanted something that I could safely give to a kid of mine, to a patient of mine, and to take myself. And maybe these weren't people who were looking for, the whole gamut. They were looking for something they could take just on the days they were going to be in the sun. And so what the gummy is it is just the polypodium with a little bit of niacinamide, which we know is also protective against photoaging and skin cancers, together in a very easy to take format. And it's research proven. Like my goal was to really create something that other dermatologists would feel confident giving to their patients. So it is non-GMO, it's made in the USA, it's third-party verified. And then I wanted the broadest group of people to be able to take it. So it's safe for kids over the age of 3 and vegan and sugar-free and kosher and halal. So I tried my best to really create a product that anybody that was looking for sun protection could easily take. And I think we really succeeded when it comes to the gummy.
Yeah, I feel like you covered all your bases, and I've tried it. It tastes delicious. It tastes like a little candy. My kids would totally munch these up for sure. I need to just make sure they only take the 2 and not, more than that. What about pregnancy? Can pregnant women take this?
I have not tested in pregnancy. I know other derms have taken it, but it's not my recommendation that people take it in pregnancy. I will say, though, when it comes to how many you can take, the dose is 2, but you can safely take more every couple of hours. So my own 3-year-old niece has eaten the whole bottle by mistake because I gave it to my brother to try. It is in the end just a fern. And so, although I don't recommend that, I will say if a person is outdoors all day and they want to top off their protection every couple of hours, think of it like reapplying sunscreen. You really can take 2 additional ones. It takes about an hour is what we're finding for them to work. So if somebody is going out and they take them an hour before, they will have full protection for several hours. And then if they're out beyond that, they can take 2 more. And, where this really comes in handy is I find like my outdoor enthusiasts, so like rock climbers or rowers, they'll put their sunscreen on in the morning, but they tell me, they're like, Dr. Galaria, I'm not going to reapply because it's dangerous. I can't be slippery when I'm rock climbing, for example. But they are willing to, take a couple of gummies because that's not going to make them slippery. And then there's just people who I recommend reapply and they don't, like women who've got a full face of makeup on, golfers, men in general.
People just forget, right? I'm not a great reapplier either, I have to admit.
Yeah, it is. It's the hardest thing with sunscreen is to reapply. I put that first layer on every morning. But if somebody said, yeah, you can take 2 gummies and get a little additional protection, I would still rather they reapply. But if they're not going to, it's nice to know that they've got this additional layer of protection now.
And like you said, it's one tool in our toolbox. And I'm a big fan of sun protective clothing too. So have that on hand, reapply. That's really interesting. I did not know you could take these every few hours if you're outdoors. And I'm thinking in my head, because we're actually going to the beach tomorrow. And, we're out for hours at a time. My kids are out for hours at a time. And we do our best. I try to keep them, covered and all that. But inevitably, it always happens, right? They get a burn somewhere or a tan somewhere that we miss. So I'm definitely going to pack this on our trip and be handing them out when we're out at the beach for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of the joke with my kids' friends because they're always like, can't we just take some of those gummies that your mom makes? Like, teens just are not great, right? They're not great about reapplication. So no matter what we say, it's nice for them to do the things that we're telling them, but it's also nice to give them other options because frankly, the stakes are high. Like these 18-year-olds who are burning, I don't think they even realize what that means later on down the line. Like we both know because we see so much skin cancer, but it's hard to convince an 18-year-old maybe to reapply. But frankly, it's not that hard to convince them to take 2 delicious gummies.
Yeah, even my young patients in their 20s, they're like, oh, sun shirt, no thanks, or reapply. Just getting them to wear sunscreen for the first time, the first application, can sometimes be a struggle. But yeah, no one's going to complain about taking this like sweet, delicious gummy. So I think it's a great option. And of course, we know how important sun protection or not getting sunburns before the age of 18 or minimizing those, right? Like we know that has an effect for melanomas and skin cancers down the road. And when you're 17, 18, like you're not worried about skin cancer at 60, right? Like that's like the last thing you're worried about. So yeah, being able to give your kid this before they go to baseball or swim team or whatever, I think is great. And I'd always wondered, like I'd heard about polypodium and I never really knew, like I'm kind of a skeptic with stuff and I really want to see data and science behind it. So for a long time, I was like, is this just hype? Is this just gimmick? But I've seen the studies and we're talking about them now that actually no, this does really help and can be one more tool. So I think that's awesome.
It's our training, right? We're meant to be skeptics because we don't just jump on every bandwagon. So yeah, I think it does take us a long time to really adopt something fully. And that's really how this Inner Glow company came to be, because I was looking around and I would look for things, especially we also have a hair vitamin. And with hair, this was really a big problem where I was looking for ingredients to give my patients that would help them. And when we started testing some of the vitamins out there, it was, I hate to say it, like just snake oil, like people would say it was omega-3 and it was full of some kind of olive oil. So people don't know this, but the FDA does not regulate supplements in this country. And so you can really bottle anything, write just about anything you want on it and put that on the shelf and sell it. And that is really where this came from. Is I was like, I want this to be at the same caliber as the medicines that I give my patients. I want to know that it's well made, well researched, and I want to verify with each batch, we verify what has gone into it to confirm that patients are really getting what we think they're getting.
Such a huge point that I'm always amazed people don't realize that supplements, a lot of it's snake oil and it's too bad. It's a shame because people spend a lot of money on these things and they'll be taking dozens of these supplements thinking, having good intentions, they're trying to do what's best for them, what they've heard works. And they're just being conned by these like sugar pills and placebos. So any recommendation, right, with the world of supplements, I feel like it's just booming and, oh, take this, take that. And it's like, oh my gosh, where do you even start? But I love that your company's doing research and validating and making sure that the claims that you say are true. For the average listener, any recommendations when you're picking up just any supplement to make sure that you're really getting the fish oil or whatever, the ashwagandha, whatever you think you're getting?
I will say that although there are probably great vitamins that come from other countries, in general, things that are made in the USA are often made, like, for example, our vitamins are made in an FDA-registered facility. They're not being checked by the FDA, but they are being made in a facility that's registered, which means they have to naturally hold themselves to a higher standard. And so I do like made in the USA. I think that that's an important thing to look at. I also like things that are non-GMO and third-party verified, and that's why that was important to me for our vitamins, because I do think that things can slide over time. So maybe people have good intentions with the very first batch they make, and really maybe it was a great batch. But when you're on your, 200,000th bottle, are you still putting in that high quality, or now does the bottom line matter too much? And now maybe is the quality slipping a little bit, And so I think third-party verification to really prove that what you said at the beginning is still what it is, maybe 5 years later, is an important thing to look for. And I will also say sometimes price point doesn't matter. So, I don't want the listeners, like the gummy is $29. And yeah, you can make it any price you want if you want to include your marketing costs and things like that. But price does not really equate to quality sometimes.
I think people have a hard time realizing that with skincare. They think the more expensive it is or the fancier the packaging, then it must be better, but not always, and I'm not saying like always go with the cheapest option, because a lot of times that's not necessarily the best either, but don't just base it off of price because, or like a nice looking bottle, right? Don't pick it out like I pick out my wine, buy out the bottle. What do you mean by third party verified? Is that the supplement company pays another company to make sure that what's in their claims are true? Or what does that mean exactly?
Exactly. So there are companies that are, set up that have a certain status that you can send your supplements to, and they will take apart your supplements. And if I say there's 280 milligrams of polypodium and it's not the root and it's, it is only the leaf, their job is to do testing and Western blots and really take a look and see, does your vitamin have what it claims it has? And I think that's really important. And that's something that, we have done in the US. There's probably companies everywhere, but there's some established people that you can send your medications or your supplements to.
That's great to know. A great tip for everyone out there. Really make sure you see that for all your supplements, just to make sure you really are getting what you claim, because beyond medications, people can really write whatever they want on packaging and supplements and topical creams and things like that. And so you do have to be careful. So that's a great point.
And I will say not everyone's standard is the same. I have toured a lot of factories when we were starting in, other countries. It's not the same. What an FDA registered facility here and some of those places I have toured there when I was looking at where it would be best to make our supplements. I mean, in the end, I was like, I am not comfortable putting the stuff made in this facility into my own body or my kids or my patients. And so, yeah, there's something to it for sure.
It's probably more expensive, right, to produce in the US and to have a FDA registered facility, but the quality is there. And certainly that kind of stuff matters. I mean, you probably remember when Valisure did that report of benzene in personal beauty products and sunscreens, and everyone's like, how'd this happen? Because benzene is not a normal component of sunscreen and deodorant and things like that. And the problem was in the manufacturing area, and a lot of these plants were all over the world, and was there really regulation and all that? So that is really, really important, because you want to make sure you're putting in your body something that's safe and effective.
Yeah. And I do think, when you're putting something in, it's in some ways, or really in most ways, even more important than what you're putting on. I think that it is important to make sure that our sunscreens or our skin products are well made, but something you're going to take and you're going to give to kids over the age of 3, like this gummy, you really have to know what's going in it.
Absolutely. Well, can we talk a little bit more about niacinamide? Because I'm curious to know, and maybe I can encourage your company to make a niacinamide vitamin or nicotinamide vitamin for patients with skin cancer. Are any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, when we were trying to decide how much B3 or niacinamide to put into our gummy, we intentionally kept it a little bit low. And the reason is that we knew that this wasn't something that as a dermatologist, I would necessarily be giving only to my skin cancer patients. This is something that is on a shelf and a 3-year-old might take it, or somebody with liver disease or kidney disease or hemochromatosis. And so I was really looking at, kind of first do no harm. And so we looked at, what if a kid eats the whole bottle? So that was kind of where the dose of niacinamide came in ours. So we know that niacinamide is helpful at repairing, and we put some in here at the dose that we thought was the most responsible for an over-the-counter product. Yes, there are things in the works for dermatologists that are higher dose niacinamide or nicotinamide. So, we know 500 milligrams twice a day is often the dose that we quote. And I think in the hands of a dermatologist who is recommending that to a specific patient, that is something that is incredibly valuable for people with skin cancers. And it is something that we're looking at.
Certainly, you wouldn't want to put such high doses in an everyday gummy that children are taking, right? And yeah, they eat, how many are in here? Like 60 gummies, right? Times 500. But yeah, like I have, again, see so many skin cancer patients. I would love to be able to say, hey, for you, you've had more than 2 skin cancers. You keep having these recurrent. Let's put you on a higher dose of nicotinamide or niacinamide and take that twice a day to reduce skin cancer. So yeah, patients are always like, but where do I go? Where do I find it? The name's confusing. so many different names, right, that we can call it. So it would be great to have that as a supplement, especially one that I know they really are getting what the bottle says.
Yeah, it's something, and I will say it's hard to put that in a gummy. B3 is actually not a nice tasting ingredient. And so so the 500 is not something you'll probably put in a gummy, maybe, a chewable or a tablet. But yeah, I agree. Even when I'm giving my skin cancer patients a niacinamide, I do struggle and I have to do a lot of work to figure out which one I should be recommending to them.
It'd be nice to just have one to go to. I'd love to know more about your hair supplement. What is in that? Because, of course, like hair supplements are blowing up all over. As a mid 40-year-old woman, I'm wanting to think about hair supplements. So, hair thinning just seems to be universal for people as we get older. So I'd love to know what's in that.
What we've identified through our research is that there's 21 ingredients that are really important for hair. And we all know that the skin and the hair although the skin is the largest organ, it's not really the most important.
Wait a minute.
I know. I'm going to say the heart might be more important. But what happens is that if somebody's like under chronic stress, they're sick, their diet is bad, maybe their sleep schedule is disrupted, well, we notice that those things have an impact on our hair and skin much sooner than they have an impact on other organs because the body, protects those organs more. And it's interesting, like now there are 20-year-olds. I have never seen this many 20-year-olds coming in complaining of chronic hair loss. And I don't know if it's chronic stress or it's something in our diet or our environment. People look at pesticides and herbicides and they talk about stuff like that. But kind of chronic hair loss has become a really almost like an endemic problem. And so as we were doing the research for this, we realized there's 21 ingredients that are really very helpful at helping people grow hair. And so this is the only vitamin that I'm aware of on the market today that has all 21 ingredients. And it has the vitamins and minerals. It's got collagen in it. It's got things like ashwagandha to control stress-related hair loss, saw palmetto to control, female pattern hair loss. It's got something called moringa leaf, which is really great at helping people who have TSH issues like thyroid issues, or they've got maybe insulin resistance issues and they're losing hair because of that. It's got turmeric in it. All those things are natural herbal ingredients, which you can't overdo. So, we put them all together and we've had really good results. Somewhere between 94 to 96% of people grow hair on this supplement when they take it for 3 months.
I didn't realize hair thinning and hair loss. I thought it was just something men had to deal with. So it seems like now I see it everywhere. So maybe that's just like confirmation bias on my part. But yeah, it just seems like a lot of people are struggling with it. And it's multifactorial. A lot of things can be contributing to it. And again, people are looking for natural ways to treat their body, to heal their body. And so along with doing stress management or whatever, fixing the underlying medical condition if possible, it's great that there's a supplement too. And I also feel like with hair loss, you kind of have to throw the kitchen sink at it too. So even if you're doing PRP or minoxidil, like throw in a hair supplement, take some vitamin D. It can't hurt, right?
Well, and we did a study actually that showed that regardless of your hair loss treatment, if you are on Inner Glow hair vitamins, your results will be better. Because if you give yourself all of the building blocks you need, any treatment you do, whether it's PRP or spironolactone or Propecia, like all of it does better when you have the right nutritional building blocks available to grow hair.
Now, is that a supplement for women, men, all ages?
At some point we might come up with a, specific one for men that maybe has higher doses of things like saw palmetto. But currently, this is something that either a man or a woman could safely take.
Okay, probably 18 and up.
18 and up. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know people younger do use it, but these are all adult doses of the vitamins that were in there. And if I can do a little PSA here, I will say if you are on a hair vitamin, pick it up, turn it around, and look at your dose of biotin in there, please. Because nowadays, because I think in general, people have always heard that biotin is good for your hair. But what has happened is people have now kind of thought, well, if a little is good, a lot is so much better. And some of the vitamins out there have 10, 20,000% of the recommended dosage of biotin. And we know that is dangerous. It can mess up if you're doing, this is a little less relevant now, but if you're doing a COVID test, it's going to mask a positive COVID test. It's going to potentially mess up your thyroid testing. And maybe most serious, and the FDA put out a warning for this, it can mask a heart attack. And so high doses of biotin are really dangerous. And I think a lot of vitamins have it. And I would tell your listeners, if you've got something with a high dose of biotin, really consider maybe, choosing something else.
I'm really glad you made that point because I've said that before too. People don't realize that their hair supplement pill has biotin in it, and then they're also separately taking biotin, and then they might be doing one other thing with they don't realize they're
like a multi. Yeah.
Exactly. They're triple dipping into biotin. They're taking such high doses. And yeah, the scary thing is it really can affect your blood work. And you certainly don't want people to miss that you're having a heart attack if that's happening or your thyroid blood work is abnormal. So super great point. I'm so glad you mentioned that about the biotin. And it doesn't work, right? So there's really no reason to take it. So I love that. Well, Dr. Galaria, I've learned a lot because I've always been wondering, should I start taking polypodium supplements? I'm really good with sun protection. Is that something extra I need? And you've really helped kind of clear any confusion I have on this. So I really appreciate that. I would love for you to give the listeners your top 3 takeaways. Let's just talk about like polypodium and sun protection.
The first thing I want to tell people is 2024 is set to be the hottest year in history. Okay, so it's the summer. We're heading into the summer. People are heading to the beach. Use your sun protection and think about polypodium. It's an easy thing to add on as an additional layer of protection. So I really think when people are looking, you can pick up your sunscreen and you can pick up your gummy and you can take them both to the beach. The gummy is good too. It's actually doesn't melt until 170 degrees Fahrenheit. We had it tested. And so you can throw it in a bag. If it gets a little gummy, it is still good and it's effective. So I think that for people, when they know they're going to be in the sun, a great take-home point is just take the gummies on those days. This does not have to be daily vitamins. So take it on the days you know you're going to be getting a little bit of extra sun.
Yeah, maybe you don't need to do it if you're working in the office all day and it's November.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, yes, 2024 is going to be really hot. So consider doing good sun protection. 2, add this on days you know you're going to be in the sun. And I think the third point that's really important is it's good for adults, it's good for kids, but it is not a replacement for sunscreen for anybody.
Yeah, don't think you can just take this gummy and go live your life and forget about sun protection. It's just one extra step for extra protection. But yeah, you still have to be smart about sun protection. All right. Well, wonderful. Well, where can the listeners find out where to get Inner Glow, find out more information about it, and also to follow you and see what you're up to in your company?
Inner Glow currently is online, so you can get it at just our website, innerglowvitamins.com. It also sells on Amazon. And I will say I've been really fortunate because a ton of dermatologists now carry it in their offices. And so in many cases, you might find it in your dermatologist's office if somebody's going in, for their regular skin check. And I will say I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for, dermatologists like you taking the time to tell your readers and your listeners about it, but also the dermatologists who are carrying it. Because I really do think that although patients do love it, when people who are really trained in the skin, who understand the science and the research behind it, buy into the product, it really makes me feel great because it's something that, I know that they really truly understand.
It's great to have dermatologists leading the way in medicine and skin health because we have all that background knowledge. And I feel like the best products come from a need. And you saw the need that patients need more than just sunscreen and sun protective clothing, right? Like what else can we do? So that's really where the best products and inventions come from. And who better than a dermatologist who sees this every day?
Right. Thank you.
This is great. I will leave all that information in the show notes so people can easily find you. I really appreciate your time. And I am definitely going to be packing my Inner Glow for my beach trip tomorrow. So thanks so much for hooking me up with that.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We'll see everyone next week.